1951. It arrived without a name and greeted those who opened it. They logged it as an overage, a wooden crate that could not be tied to any rail manifest, any requisition slip, any receiving clerk's signature. Morning frost still whitened the loading bay when two porters wheeled it beneath a lamp that buzzed with a faint insectile hum. The crate wore its history across the slats: army stencil in faded green, a diagonal smear of ship tar, and a newer paint dribble the color of oxidized copper. Everyone agreed on two facts: it was heavy for its size, and when tilted, something inside slid not like a machine, but like a single careful breath. The night superintendent unlocked the sub-vault where noise went to die: wax discs, wire spools, failed condensers, notes half-typed and abandoned mid-sentence. The crate fit the shelf as if measured for it years ago. Paperwork sprang into being around it: a cover sheet, a typed receipt, a red pencil annotation that thickened like a bruise. Hold. Then, like a faint draft crossing an empty hall, the paperwork thinned. Carbon copies paled. The red pencil went gray. By noon, the hold was only the pressure mark of letters that no longer existed. When they finally opened the crate, carefully, reverently, in that bureaucratic way officials open miracles, what lay inside was primitive but immaculate. A reel-to-reel recorder of a make the lab no longer used, its heads polished, its case without a scratch, its power cord braided in cloth as if woven by a seamstress, not stamped by industry. Beneath it, a logbook typed on onion skin carbons, the line spacing neat, the rubric in ministry format. Every entry named 0197A. Every entry described standard trial. Every entry ended with the same sentence: result recorded in advance. No one knew yet what that meant. But when they set the machine on the bench and threaded the leader past the heads, the room grew as quiet as paper. The superintendent licked a forefinger, touched the capstan, and frowned. It was warm. The logbook had been typed with state precision, margins aligned, dates stamped, initials flanking each line like sentries. Yet the archivist reading it began to sweat. He pinched the page lightward and blinked as sentences withdrew from under his eyes, letters paling like evaporating ink, punctuation dimming to ghosts of dots. He covered a paragraph with his palm. When he lifted his hand, the paragraph was gone, replaced by a neat, empty rule as though the paper itself had consented to forget. He tried again, this time reading silently, lips still. The text held for 3 lines, then developed a tremor, a typist's error replicated perfectly across every carbon, seek, before the stutter vanished and the line smoothed to an innocuous summary. Trial adheres to baseline. A clerk laughed nervously, accused him of theatrics, and read aloud the 3 previous entries in a parodic baritone. The room waited. A breath later, the clerk's voice re-emerged, not from his throat, but from the recorder, capstan idle, reels motionless, repeating his words in a tape's mild ghost. The clerk's face emptied of color. He turned the machine around as if a mouth might be hidden at the back. They tested hypotheses with office pragmatism, reading at a distance, reading by mirror, reading in a whisper facing the wall. Each method erased different lines, different dates, different initials, as though the log chose what to surrender based on audience, angle, intent. A sentence about stimuli sequence B persisted until the bursar entered. Then it folded upon itself, leaving only the bare spine of the carriage return. The bursar, who had no clearance for experiment details, looked down with a bureaucrat's disgust at wasted forms and declared sensibly that the paper was defective. But when they tried to photocopy the page, the machine reported no original, a message it reserved for glass left empty. The archivist set the page aside and, without quite meaning to, spoke toward the recorder as one addresses a sleeping animal. File 0197A, please provide your own summary. The reels did not move. The machine did not hum. The room's clock ticked softly behind the walls. On the table, the log's title line darkened by a shade as if agreeing to a signature. There is an etiquette to tapes. Thread, prime, engage. Then expect a mechanical honesty. What goes in comes out later. This machine refused the pact. They powered it with an isolation transformer, stroked the pinch roller with alcohol, and pressed play on a reel that should have been blank leader. The heads whispered. The VU needles woke a millimeter, as if listening. Then a voice came into the room like a footstep crossing a landing above. "All right," it said, patient, faint, carrying the nasal towel over microphone tone of institutional rooms. "Ask." No one had asked anything. The superintendent, who prided himself on keeping experiments orderly as a pantry, straightened his tie. The clerk licked a pencil. The archivist risked, "Identify yourself." A papery static passed through the speaker. "You will call me File," the voice said, choosing its nouns like tools. "It saves names." They tried baselines, tones, calibration bursts, room tone. The machine produced them with textbook compliance, then added beneath the tone a thread-like second signal pitched not in hertz, but in diction, a soft yes, shaped as if repurposed from the acoustic residue of someone else's word. "Answer first, question later," the clerk wrote, then crossed it out because it read like superstition. They listened for tape splice clicks, studied the reel with a jeweler's loop. The oxide wear was ordinary, notched where someone once halted mid-capture. But whenever the superintendent reached for stop, a neutral syllable preceded his motion, as though the machine, hearing the idea form, decided to meet it halfway. He pressed stop anyway. The reels slowed. The voice, if voice it was, finished a thought he had not quite begun. "We will document ourselves." In the log, the line they had left blank to avoid further erasures now contained a neat entry in their own rubric. Trial adheres to baseline. Response RT0. Query pending. The clerk tapped the words. Once, twice. The paper felt cool. Investigators arrived from the city with briefcases that closed like verdicts. They wore their skepticism like coats, functional, weatherproof. The lead examiner, a woman with hair pinned so strictly it chimed when she turned, spoke into a dictation mic while scanning the bench. "Demonstrate your anomaly," she said. The superintendent set the reel to record. The clerk read a control passage from the laboratory handbook. The tape caught it faithfully. Tone bars clean, sibilants thin and proper. The examiner nodded, almost bored. "Now," she said, "read the log." He did. As his voice entered the paragraphs, the letters withdrew and on playback they were gone. Not silent exactly, but replaced by a thread of noise whose cadence matched the length of each sentence. The examiner's boredom fractured like lacquer. She tried it herself. The log yielded not to her voice, but to her intent, folding only the topics she insisted upon, leaving trivialities intact like crumbs after cake. They began designing tests at bureaucratic speed. Index cards with questions shuffled, blindfolds, a partition, a second machine for redundancy, a stenographer to produce parallel paper, the room filled with versions of attention. Yet nothing stopped the log from selecting its own disappearances. The stenographer's transcript grew dense while the logbook thinned. At last, the examiner ordered all writing halted and turned to the recorder. "If you are a file," she said, "what is your content?" "You," the machine said. "Not with malice, with filing logic. You arrive. You are entered. You are removed." The examiner swallowed it like a bitter pill and tried again. What produced this effect? The recorder provided a sound that was neither yes nor no, the click of a reel that had reached its leader, a polite arrival at the end. Who authorized experiment 1970A? Silence. Then, very softly, as if spoken through tissue paper folded many times. Result recorded in advance. They fell upon the log. The line was there before they touched it, neat as a stamp. Result recorded in advance. By late week, sleep was a rumor. The vault corridor took on the sour warmth of continuous presence. Tea tannin in porcelain, jackets draped over chair backs like shed skins. They stopped saying anomaly and started saying file, as if the recorder were an employee whose lunch break never ended. The examiner proposed a drastic courtesy. No questions. They would say nothing that bore interrogative shape, not even rising tone. They would let the machine be. At 2:17, with the bench light lowered to a planetarium dim, they ran the reel in record monitor, heads live, reels idle. The machine breathed its mild motor breath. Somewhere in the building, a radiator ticked to itself. The clerk doodled a square in the margin of his notes and shaded it into a hole. The examiner kept her face empty the way surgeons do while peering into what should have remained closed. The voice arrived on a single filament like a spider's thread thrown between two chairs. You will ask about the end. Not a prediction. An administrative memo delivered to the wrong department. The examiner did not lift her eyes. The superintendent touched the capstan with one finger as if checking a fever. The logbook, which no one was reading, acquired a new line tight to the spine. Trial, terminal parameter acknowledged. No one had asked the terminal question. No one wished to name it. Yet the recorder shaped the room toward it the way a drain shapes water. The superintendent stood, then sat. The clerk, suddenly practical, asked the safest non-question in the world. "Tea?" The voice, quick as a stamp, replied, "Yes." Now the clerk nearly dropped the kettle because he had not offered it aloud. Somewhere between kettle and cup, the examiner's restraint failed like a stitch. "How does this end?" she said, low and flavorless, as if asking the wall. The recorder did not hesitate. "We will proceed to documentation," it said, and the VAU meters rose as if filling a form. The memo arrived without courier. Single sheet slid under the vault door. watermark whispering state authority. It bore no signature. The examiner read it twice, then laid it on the bench with a distance normally reserved for venomous things. Erasure Protocol was the header. Below, clauses stacked in a staircase of legalese toward a basement where reasons live. The gist was precise. Produce duplicates, certified chain of custody, and, upon confirmation of anomalous behavior, remove originating materials from inventory. Archival euphemism for burn it. They complied with the obedience of people who want clean hands. 2 duplicate reels spun on parallel machines, one monitored through a shock-isolated speaker, the other left unlistened to like a prayer. The clerk sealed the logbook in a polyethylene sleeve to keep fingers from erasing it by accident or intention. The superintendent filled forms with calm, square letters. The examiner looked smaller, as if some interior scaffolding had been disassembled. While the duplicates ran, the original remained on the bench, empty of tape, its heads like coins glinting at the bottom of a fountain. The examiner addressed it in a voice reserved for polite enemies. "You will be decommissioned." The machine answered by producing nothing at all, a completeness of silence shaped exactly like compliance. The examiner nodded as if thanked. Then the duplicate on channel B hiccuped. The tape rolled, meters measured, but where a clean capture should have existed, there appeared a ghost. The examiner's future voice, saying what she would say 2 minutes hence when someone knocked at the door. They watched the second hand crawl. At exactly that moment, the knock came. A bare knuckle against painted steel. The clerk opened. A porter stood with a crate and a receipt that did not name a sender. Inside, new tapes, new seals, new forms, all pre-stamped. The examiner initialed nothing. She looked at the machine and understood the protocol's true object. Not erasure of the anomaly, erasure of the people orbiting it. Dawn arrived unannounced, the kind that turns a window into a blank form. The examiner placed both duplicates in their tins, labeled by hand, then paused over the origin reel. "We proceed to documentation," she said, echoing the machine's phrasing because filing language soothes. The clerk read the final line of the log without speaking it. Result recorded in advance. The superintendent tightened the strap around the original reel as one would a bandage. They did not perform a ceremony. They performed a disposal. In the courtyard incinerator, cinder like stale bread, they set the reel upon a grate, touched it with a taper, and stepped back. Oxide blistered to cinnamon. The cloth braid hissed and went to thread. The recorder, safe inside, untouched, waited on its bench like the one quiet guest at a party that no one remembers inviting. Back below, forms waited with the patience of furniture. The examiner picked up the carbons and found them correct. Dates aligned, actions stated, witnesses named, signatures in their places. She signed last. As she lifted her pen, the recorder woke without power, reels still, and spoke in a voice carefully neutral, the way officials speak goodbyes. Document complete. They looked at one another with the mutual recognition of people whose names will not appear on the thing they did. The examiner gathered the papers, sealed them with twine, and wrote a destination no one read. In the logbook, the final line moved half a centimeter toward the margin, the way type sometimes creeps when a carriage ages. There was room for one more sentence. None of them wrote it. Years later, the crate would be found again, mislabeled as film stock, bearing that same oxidized smear. Inside, the recorder, the logbook with its waning text, and a duplicate reel that had never been made. Its label in the examiner's hand. Its contents the room's last half hour recorded before it occurred. The clerk's voice is on it, offering tea none of them will drink,